It's Sunday night. Me and the gang, we're pulling up and we're recording a new episode. Um, Many more good conversations to come. I've been enjoying the comments. Some of the comments happen on Facebook. We appreciate if you guys drop comments here. That just helps with the algorithms. And I'm sure for many of you who are watching, you probably have a dilemma that you're facing. You watch this podcast and you don't want to like it. You don't want to subscribe to the channel because you feel like you don't want to do anything that's going to help the mission of this podcast. Well, what is the mission of this podcast? The mission of this podcast is really just to spark conversation, to have some good discussions amongst ourselves. But then also there are people who are just peering in, who like to peer in, who like to hear what do non-Christians think, and not just non-Christians, but former Christians, people who know the things that I know about the Bible, or they may know the things I want to know about the Bible, but now they don't believe it. What do they talk about? So the mission is really just to educate people along those lines, and then to spark discussion. I'll say this a few times for people who are just getting introduced to this podcast. All three of us are former Christians. My man Jay Whit, short for Jehovah's Witness Protection. My man Albert, out on the West Coast. Al, you're from the West or you're from the East Coast?
West.
You're from the West Coast.
Yeah, but I lived in New York for 8 years.
Okay, in New York for 8 years. All right.
Yeah.
Which coast do you like the best?
Both for different reasons.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was trying to pull you over to the East Coast.
Yeah.
How old were you during the hip hop East Coast West Coast beef?
But you're talking about when
Biggie, Pop. This is 95, 96.
95. Oh, that. No, I wasn't really into that at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a whole different East Coast West Coast beef in your mind when I even said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, correct.
Got you. Because I was going to try to ask you which coast were you pulling for. That would have shown where your heart really was. Was it really?
No. See, I can't do that. I can't
relate.
That. I mean, I of course I listen to Tupac or a little bit of Ice Cube or some of the NWA people, but
right.
I never really liked hip hop until I got more into Wu-Tang.
Okay.
And then some of the the Philly people, right? All the
You're talking about the Christian rap guys.
Yeah. Because I really liked the fact that it all sounded. There was an influence of sound.
Got you, the Wu-Tang East Coast sound,
right.
But then the Christ-centered,
right.
Lyrics and all that. But the fact that you gravitated towards Wu-Tang, I'm going to claim you as an East Coast guy. I just was looking. Okay, that's all I was looking for, was some East Coast affiliation. So,
cool.
Jay,
if I may, I'm largely just enjoying a newfound community. I mean, I'm friends with these brothers here separately, but this is a new thing. It's sort of like we're corporately meeting and getting together and having a good time over commonality. So it's mostly just a sort of kind of almost fellowship that I'm getting out of it, and it's not really mean-spirited at all, and it's not intended. That's not the primary goal or the goal at all, at least for me. I just want to make sure people understand that as a disclaimer that it's not even particularly to deconvert other people, at least for me. Primarily, I'm just enjoying being able to sort of chop it up with people who I have these commonalities with. Now, these other benefits that are peripheral to that, that is the sparking of discussion. I don't need to say much more about that because I don't think it's necessary that we all have exactly the same motive and goal here.
Right.
It's sufficient for that to be the goal of the leader of the podcast.
Right. So when I was giving the mission of the podcast, I never sat down and wrote a mission statement about here's what it is. So what Jay Whit is talking about there is why he was interested, and this is what I was getting to, Jay Whit. You kind of stole the thunder of where I was going to get to, because I was going to come back and ask you, but you kind of just shared it. But I want to share it again for those who don't know. Maybe you missed the episode where I said this. Both Albert and Jay Whit, these brothers deconverted from Christianity over a decade ago. And they were just off living their life, not thinking about the Christian faith, just doing their thing. these brothers had their own reasons for wanting to come together and just kick it. And then, like Jay Whit said, then you end up finding this fellowship, the fellowship of the ring, as it were. It's just the fellowship that happens on the way to a destination that I was going to, in terms of putting this book out and wanting to have these conversations with people about the faith that I loved, the faith that I had devoted my life to, and that these brothers shared some of that, but it was so in their rearview mirror, they kind of had to throw it in reverse just to come back to have these conversations, and there's been fellowship in that mix. So, if I were to sit down and write a mission statement, I wonder what I would say about this podcast. I'll have to do that, and maybe we'll have a conversation about that. Yeah,
it might be helpful for other people and future generations even to not have to go through what I went through. Each one of us have had a slightly different experience when we left the faith. I lost my whole community. I lost valuable friends that I built with for years. Like I had no friends, really. I had a handful, 2 or 3 people. After many years of laboring alongside people and being friends together, and sharing my life, sharing literally all the kind of intimate details of life, deaths and the family and so forth. These people never spoke to me again. And so it's good for people to see that you can leave the faith and still have genuine friendships with people, people who you actually care about, that I don't need to have a shared myth that it's kind of funny because actually we have a shared myth that we used to believe in. Right. So it's like, we're still being brought together by belief, even though now it's sort of like non-belief. It's still non-belief in a very specific religion that has brought us together in this format. So
Al, you might as well share, since we went that far. You jumped on because you heard me and Jay Whit were going to be responding to people's critique of the book. You said, "Yo, I want to get in on that because I got something to say." But I'm wondering, having we're now 6 episodes in, has it taken on a new meaning for you, or a new, you got involved for one reason, now we're not responding to the book responses to the book anymore. Do you find a renewed sense or kind of a different sense of, here's why you're still hopping on Sunday nights?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I just to be frank, I part of the motivation for me was actually bringing support, to what your, the goals and objectives you have in all of this and all of the efforts that you're trying to, bring in terms of not only educating people, but having really meaningful conversations around, the faith and, what it means for people who have a lot of questions, a lot of doubts and things like that. So that I just, I was excited to number one, contribute to, some of the design work with the book. And I was excited to have these conversations. I think there's a lot of, my brother-in-law actually kind of asked me, because I told him about this and I sent him one of the episodes, and he's also an ex-Christian who also went to, he actually met my sister at MacArthur's church, and they were part of that community, and then they, eventually they left too. So, but he kind of told me, why do you want to talk about all this stuff? Why do you want to talk about it? And I told him, actually, when I thought about it, I was like, actually, I think you are one of the few, you and Jay Whit are one of the few people that I think I'm willing to have, open and distributed conversations about. I think when it comes to a lot of other people, I think that's a different story. So, but to get to, your question, I think it's taken on, I think it has surprised me in terms of how some of these conversations have taken, the course it's taken, some of the concepts and ideas and questions that you're bringing to the table. It's fantastic. I think we're, really hitting on a lot of great subjects, and I think that it has helped me process some other things better. You know, I think I've gone through periods of processing something. I did a lot of processing when I first left. And then I think there was like a period of where I just, you know, didn't really think about it all too much for a long time. And then having to come back and think about it again is really refreshing to me.
Wow.
I'm sure Jay Whit, you know, you can probably say similar. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's you know, I'm kind of excited to see what other avenues we can go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
go
great
ahead.
stuff. I think
Sorry.
something Jay Whit
Yeah.
said a minute ago. No, I appreciate that. Jay Whit said when he was deconverting, he didn't have anything like this. And I
Right.
know when you know, some people deconstruct before they deconvert.
Right.
I think I felt my deconversion happen in an instant, but then I denied it. You know, I was in denial for several years. But then I had to deconstruct so that I could make sure I was ready to deconvert.
Right.
Other people have a different process. They deconstruct first and then they deconvert.
Right.
Some deconstruct and then they reconstruct something, you know, that's quasi-Christian in its place or whatever. But anyway, I just know during that period when I was in that between deconversion and deconstruction, I didn't have anything like this. I didn't know that there was an online community of people who were discussing these things and helping people deconstruct. And so it was stressful. There was depression. There was a lot that, if I had something like this, just to hear people throw ideas out against the wall and see what sticks, and to articulate things that I didn't know how to articulate, it would have been medicinal. And so I can see how having what would have been medicinal in the past could now be therapeutic to kind of work through these things for someone.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally cathartic. It totally is, you know.
Yeah.
Even 10 years out and having, like you said, gotten on with my life, and more or less, in short, you can leave and still have a community and still have people you could talk to about some of the things that were so deeply you were so deeply entrenched in. That's the other thing, is the idea that you gave your life away to this thing and we're so deeply immersed, and then you leave and then people are like, all right, just shut up and just go into oblivion. And it's like, I was really invested in this, you know. And it's nice to just be able to talk to somebody else who was really invested and no longer is now, but that's a real part of your story of your life. It's like, just because it's not a convenient thing for other people to hear doesn't make it less a true part of your life. Like, especially if you devoted as many years to it as I did, and Brady, I'm sure, and Albert here, we've all devoted, you know, a significant portion of our lives to this thing. And then when you leave, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And I guess this podcast is one answer to that. You can still find some commonality with other people who have your same experience. It's also, I guess you could say, there is a part of me that's starting to think that it is a public service. And that's a newer thought, because I'm starting to realize that I have to be careful how I say things. So, you know, I'm conscious of the fact that people are listening in and people's feelings may be getting hurt and stuff, and I don't want to hurt people. I mean, at the heart of everything.
This is the moment on American Idol where Simon Cowell stops being the bad guy and starts being more sensitive. Jay Whit has a heart.
No. It's like, I mean, you know, all jokes aside, I really don't want to hurt people. I mean, I literally felt my eyes welling up when I was thinking over the matter. So I mean, I'm like, all jokes aside, you know, like, I don't want to hurt people. The whole reason why I'm even being public about this, because this is not something I wanted to do necessarily, is because I thought it would be a good thing, and maybe somebody won't have to go through what I went through, which is losing your whole community. Like, these were people who I loved. I devoted my life. I was willing to, without running the risk of being too histrionic, I was willing to die for this, you know, this religion in the past, you know. And so I didn't take it lightly, and now that I'm out of it, I wouldn't want to make fun of people who were as committed as I was, if that's making them feel bad. Now, I know some atheists said they should feel bad, and some non-believers will say they should, be made fun of and rich. Well, that's fine. I think there's room for variety there, but I don't want to be that guy that's just making fun of people. I think people are helped if they can somehow, sometimes a little, that's the pill someone needs, is to just kind of see how ridiculous it is. But most people don't see it that way.
Well, and I think it comes across better, and I think we've done this. We've done this where it's one thing to say an idea is ridiculous, and I think that's what we've been trying to hint at, but it can come across as not just the idea, but the people who hold the ideas, and that's what you're saying. You don't want to do that, and I respect that.
Yeah, it's like you want to do good. Like, understand, like, whoever it is that's listening to this, I'm driven by the same ideals that drove me to Christianity. It's literally the same ideals. I want to be a good person. I want to do good. I want to do the right thing. That's why I ended up becoming a Christian until I saw that was a sham. Now I'm not in that. But it doesn't mean that my objective is somehow different. I still want to be a good person. I don't want to be out here doing bad things and making people feel bad. We talk about why do you do good? I do it because it beats its alternative, which is being bad, Right. And that's basically it for me.
All right. So about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I had a good friend, really good friend of mine, come over. We start talking, and at some point, he realizes. I think he may have asked me or said to me, like, I guess he was shocked because he asked, is my goal, not with the podcast, just when I talk to Christians in my day-to-day life. I'm always talking to Christians, whether it be on social media, private messages, or on Zoom meetings with people. When I let them know, I said, there's some people that I try to talk back into the faith because they want to deconvert, and I feel like their reasons are not strong enough reasons to deconvert. Like if you deconvert over church hurt, you'll be back in faith before too long, because that's not really, it's not about the faith itself, it's about the way you experience the faith. I said, but then there are others who I'm not trying to talk back into the faith. I actually am trying to talk them out of the faith. And I don't just go around trying to deconvert people, but there are people where my goal is to see people deconvert. And he was shocked, wait, that's what your goal is? You want to see people come out of the faith? And I said, yeah, when I think about it, I think it's the most healthy thing for people to, and it's not that I want to have people deconvert necessarily. I want people to care about what's true and get as close to what's true as possible. And if the Christian faith is not true, then yeah, I want to see people come away from it. And it was like it hit him like a ton of bricks. You I don't think you should want that for people. And then he said this: what if believing this faith, what if this is the only way that some people were going to ever turn their life around? You got people who got off of drugs, who went back to their families, who left gangs. And if this is the only thing that caused them to do that, why would you want to take that away from people? And I said, well, it's not that I want to take that away from people. I love that end result. I just don't think that this is the only way to reach that result. I think we as a society, we can help people get those results other ways. The fact that it worked for this person or that person, it worked for me when I was a teen. I used to make straight F's in school. I gave my life to Christ and I'm making straight A's. It turned my life around. Does that mean it was the only thing that was ever going to do that? No. But it made me say, I think it's worth having a discussion. Mm-hmm. Is it permissible? Is it Is it good? We talked about doing good. Um, to be looking to deconvert people or to see people deconvert. And so to begin discussing it, I'm going to just ask both of you, to what degree do you care, do you desire to see other people deconvert? And what do you think about someone like me who says, in writing the book that I wrote, I think part of my goal is to see people deconvert? Do you shrink back in horror and look to separate yourself from me before the lightning strikes? No, I know you don't believe in lightning striking for something like this, but like, what are your thoughts? Is it like, tisk tisk, bad Brady, or do you share in any of that? Anyway, I'm saying a lot to kind of give you a wide berth, a wide lane to take off on here. So, yeah, to what degree do you care, desire to see people deconvert? What do you think about someone like me who says, no, I actively want to see other people deconvert?
Well, that work.
Start with me. Yeah, it's a very big question. I think. You kind of answered it by saying that it's part of your goal. I see your book as being very much a part of your story, and how one of the things that you're asking about, you're a truth seeker, right? This is I think a lot of it's the type of thing that we know how to do, all three of us, right? In a sense, like we were kind of bred in that environment where we had that hunger for knowing what God's word is and understanding it the right way, or in the best possible way. I don't see what you're doing here as any different in that spirit. So
how about the first part of the question? To what degree do you care or have any desire to see other people deconvert? Because think about Apologia, right? Apologia says,
right,
there's a former Christian takes a look at the claims of Christians. He spends his life doing that. But you left the faith 10 years ago. Did you spend any time before this trying to get other Christians to think about the validity of their faith?
Yes. So I didn't, because I'm very, yeah, it's a great question. So I would feel I'm very reluctant to try and do that intentionally with individuals. Having a conversation like this, I think, is different, a little different for me, because I think, well, not different for me, but different in the sense of we're just talking about the domain and the subject matter, and it's worth talking about all the things. But I had some hesitancy. I was hesitant to send some of these episodes to some of my old friends, but I kind of had to muster up some courage to do it, because I knew that it was going to be threatening to their faith and things like that. So, it's a careful. I think it requires a lot of carefulness, careful consideration, and just. I don't see anything. We can couch the conversation in really thinking about what is true here, and what are better explanations to the question, the whole issue of faith and religion. It doesn't necessarily have to be couched in the intent to deconvert people, but I don't see why not if the context fits within certain people. So it's a great question. Yeah. Jay Whit, you could take it off from here. I don't know if you want to add to that. I'm sure you have something.
No, I would say I don't have a goal to deconvert anyone, but I feel like that's fine. I'm friends with Brady, and uh, I don't think he has. I think he has good motivation for what he's doing, but I'm not particularly motivated to deconvert people. Just I mean, it's been. I waved probably more initially. I was angry because I felt like I had been lied to just by every person that was close to me, like from grandparents to parents, and I didn't think that they were lying intentionally. I think they believed it too, but I felt like a lie had been sort of passed down to all of us, and I found myself being angry because I felt like you initially start realizing that a lot of the guilt that you dealt with was, there is a psychological element. That's why we've dealt so much with the psychological element of this. At least that's why I have, is because it does a number on you. And just guilt, unnecessary guilt. And I don't want to, I'm hesitant to give Christians that fodder to be like, oh, he just wanted to get free from guilt. That's why he no. No, I apostatized because I didn't believe the tenets or whatever. I ceased to believe. But it is... when you do cease to believe, then, a sort of kind of one of the benefits that's almost a collateral benefit of leaving the faith is then you have this freedom from guilt. I mean, because if you don't have a God to put your faith in to escape wrath, then you don't have the guilt that incited the wrath anymore. And once you realize you don't have this guilt, then you start realizing that someone was playing a mind, someone or some people or something was playing a mind game on you, and that can lead to a certain degree of anger and lashing out and wanting to kind of convince other people. But when I started realizing most people don't believe because of any of the stuff that we're talking about on this podcast, this is part of the reason why I'm not too eager to try to convince the person to not believe, because I don't think that any of the stuff that we're pointing out, a lot of people believe because of them. A lot of people avoid the issues of surrounding inerrancy, a lot of stuff we spoke about, just because their reason for being in faith, it has to do with their parents or their connection, their family connect. There's so many other reasons. People build, it's like our corrupt systems in any place. Like, you have a prison industrial complex that builds prisons that create jobs, that bring jobs to an area. It's like, so then you have a corrupt system that might build the prisons that create the jobs, but you kind of can't get to the crux of the problem because of all of the other stuff that's built on the problem. It's like, in order to root the problem out, you'd have to destroy all of these other things. You'd have to destroy people's lives, destroy their livelihoods. So like, if they were to, for instance, to just take that analogy, if they were to take away the corruption in our prison system, people would lose jobs. So we don't want to get rid of the corrupt prison system because we need to keep people employed. You see what I mean? If your marriage, your home, all the things I lost when I left the faith, all of my close friends, if that stuff is built on the faith, then I'm not inclined to do an analysis of my faith that's too probing and deep, because I know I'm going to lose all of these other things, which are very important. That might actually even be more important if you actually weigh them in the balance than the inerrancy of the text. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I don't think that it's just a matter of, for me, it was a matter of just confronting me with the facts of the case. I think for most people, it isn't that. At least this is what I found. Most people don't, and the reason why you say, well, how have you found this? When I left, nobody wanted to have those. This is why we're having this discussion now. I would have gotten this out of myself 10 years ago if somebody would have wanted to talk to me. But they don't want to talk to you about this stuff. Why? Because they don't care about these things. These aren't the things that are driving them.
On this, but I'm thinking about some of the conversations that I've had with people, and there's so many people that I can think of from just like, they don't really want to talk about these issues. And if they do talk about them, they talk about them in ways that are just like we said, they got these covers that they'll pull over themselves to try to hide themselves from the issue. And as soon as you pull one away, they have another one. I'm like, do people not really care? But then you've got all these apologists who they're shoring up these issues as if, yeah, these are the reasons why we believe. So why are they shoring up these issues about why we can trust the text and how we know Jesus did rise from the dead, or why we can have confidence in this? And if it's true that it's not these reasons that are keeping people, why are apologists working so hard to shore them up? Doesn't that suggest that these are the reasons why people believe?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that it seems on the surface, it's like one of these things where I think it's important to take another analogy. It's like election deniers who they're trying to overthrow the democratic system in the name of preserving the democratic system.
In the name
because
of
they know that integral to the democracy is this system of voting. So it's like integral to their faith.
Jay, to be fair to them, they actually think that the democratic system has already been overthrown.
Compromise, yes. But I'm saying, like, you have to understand that there's a certain kind of circularity in saying, okay, going into the election, if I don't win, it's rigged. Then you already don't believe in the democratic system that you're participating in. And this isn't to take aim at Republicans or anything. I'm just saying...
You're looking for an analogy.
It's just a represent... What'd you say?
You're looking for an analogy.
Yeah, analogy.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there are things for which the idea, you can't divorce it from the idea of it. You know, so like here we have... You know, you need this inerrant book. You need these doctrines and stuff. But you almost can't have the communities, the church, the corporate worship. And, you know, some people have referred to hymns and all kinds of, like, the things that they really cherish. You can't have them without this other furniture. So you need to make sure that stuff is in place, too. So even if it's only just almost kind of paying a lip service to it, it needs to be dealt with because we need these doctrines, we need the inerrant Bible and so forth. But actually, from week to week, they're not addressing Deuteronomy 22:13 or 14 or 12. They're not addressing any of this stuff dealing with the autographa and the variants and like most of the Christians don't even know about this stuff. You have to go to seminary often to even encounter this stuff. And even when you try to bring it up in conversation with even seminarians, they're doing, you know, look at Michael Brown. We just watched the thing earlier. It's like untruthful answers or just, it's just, you know, clearly that's not a person trying to get down to the bottom of the issue if you're being untruthful. Like, so what is he really trying to preserve? Like, you don't preserve the truth by using a lie. You're preserving something else. What are you preserving? You're preserving your way of life. And it's like, if your way of life is the thing that you're committed to, no amount of logical argumentation or presentation with facts is going to argue you out of that. And I'm convinced most people are functioning on that level. They want to preserve their way of life for maybe even for good reason. You know, I'm not so sure the world would be, I'm not one of these people who's convinced the world would be better if everybody just dropped their faith. I'm not, you know, I know there are just too many variables in life for it to be that simple.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
What you say, Albert?
Not going to make.
It's too complicated. You can't, you know, flat out say, you know, yeah, the world will be better without religion. Yeah. So.
I personally, now I know this probably clashes a little with Brady. He probably actually does think it would be better if we faced the truth.
So at some point I realized how unfair it would be for me to even think other people could do what I've done. Because I've had 6 years to deconstruct.
Right.
And I don't think I did it consciously, but subconsciously, I think in that 6 years, I also built another life for myself. Like I had built other income streams. I had detached myself from the Christian community in ways that I wasn't as dependent on them. And I didn't allow them to be as dependent on me. So I would be at churches serving, but not in roles that if I were to drop out, it would fall apart. And in relationships that even if I had to pull back, you wouldn't feel the loss of me, but so much. I was setting up my exit strategy for several years before I even knew I was going to need it. And I wonder to what degree there are people right now doing that. There are people who are right now trying to find ways to sanitize their life from Christianity before they leave, so that it doesn't just, you can't just stop today and now next week you don't have a paycheck and you don't have a community, you don't have a this, you don't have a that, your child care service, or all the things you got from your Christian community. So I think there may be some of that happens as well. So I get what you guys are saying about not just wanting the world to, like, thinking that the world will be better if people just stop believing. Also, I've had people who told me, I've had Christian men who told me in front of their wives that if they got to believing that there was no God tomorrow, they would be out. They would cheat on their wives. They would, and their wife was sitting there right there, like,
wow.
And I'm like, and so I feel what you said, Jay, Whit, like, there's some people who probably should not deconvert because this is what's keeping you from robbing your local grocery store or whatever. Like, okay, maybe you still need to believe. So I understand that. I understand that for sure. Do I think the world will be better if people stop believing? It's not necessarily that I want people to not believe. I want people to care enough about the truth that they do whatever it demands. Whatever it demands, if you realize that something is not true, then live in light of that. And let's have conversations about what
you can't believe something you think is false. I mean, that's like a philosophical kind of thing. You just can't. Like, once you cease to believe it, I mean, once you realize it's false, you technically can't believe it anymore.
Unless they're getting something out of it. Unless they're getting a benefit from
it. I mean, it wouldn't be belief. It would be more like going through the motions. But, belief is a thing. We can't self-consciously believe false propositions. That's an impossibility.
But you can lie to yourself about whether the proposition is true.
Right.
Well, then it wouldn't be that if you're lying to yourself, you're still believing it. So the only way you could think that the proposition is true through the lie, self-deceive, is if you actually believe it. But this brings us to that ultimate idea about self-deception. Is that even a possibility? I think it was Bonson who wrote his thesis on that, the idea of self-deception.
Well, I did it for several years. I did it for several years. Like I said, my faith cracked in an instant. But then for the next...
People are going to love this soundbite, too. They're going to be like, yeah, he's been out of the faith. He's acting like he's just left.
My faith cracked in an instant, but then for about 5 years, I patched it up with everything that I could. Right. And I kept patching it up.
Had a mortal wound, though.
I didn't allow myself to dwell on the crack. But like you said, that's a good way to look at it. It was a mortal wound that I just kept patching up. So was I lying to myself? Yes, but it wasn't an active lie. I still believed as much as I could that I believe helped my unbelief. That was the verse of my life.
Yeah. And I think, talk about engineering. Christianity has done a great job there. Like, it's not the quantity of your faith, it's the object of your faith. And they would often use the mustard seed as the example. It's like you don't, it's not that you have to have big and a lot of faith. You just need to have an object that is a big object of the faith. That is Jesus, Yeah. So they had enough latitude for the person who had 1 foot out the door, basically. They had a latitude for you. There's room for you at the cross, Brady.
Right. Well, and there was room. There was room in my heart for the cross, as long as I was willing to ignore some other things.
Yeah. I think I agree with you fundamentally on some level. I just don't care enough. I mean, this is just really just human sloth or laziness. Like, I just don't care enough to devote energy to trying to deconvert people on that level. People are like, that's exactly what you're doing, Jay Whit. You're on a podcast. But it's like, not really. I'm just having conversations with friends on one level. So that's a different,
I feel like it would not be loving for me to learn that something that I've been saying for decades is not true. That there are other things that are true. So you think about, human history, how did humanity arise, the evidence for evolution. To find that there's evidence that something else is true and not put people up on that. And then to find that what we've been saying is not true and not put people up on it. For me, it feels like it would be unloving to learn something that important. These are the ultimate questions in life, right? What is our origin? What is our destiny? What is our meaning? To not be putting somebody up on truth in those areas, to me, or at least be sparking the discussions, and to let people go on believing what I know is an untruth. This is not an indictment against you all, but I'm just curious. For me, like I said, it feels unloving to learn things that I think are essential and not be putting other people up, or at least not having these discussions. I'm not saying this to indict y'all. I'm just curious. How were you able to go 10 years I'm not begging down people's door like, hey, you got to believe this and you got to stop believing that. But I am creating a space where people can at least have these discussions. How are you able to go 10 years not pulling anybody's coattail like, yo, we were wrong? How are you able to do that? I couldn't do that.
I mean, it's just pretty simple. Just get on with your life. For me, it was just like I already had wasted enough time in the faith. I was gonna waste, it was like I lost so much time with the faith that I was trying to make up for lost time with just like getting on with my life, which meant focusing on my career and things that I had any number of. I shouldn't say had in the past tense. I have a lot of responsibilities, and it was just all right, just focus on those.
We got busy. We got busy.
Yeah.
That is one of the hallmarks of I guess not whether if it's not living up to a certain type of responsibility, but it's I went to grad school and I made a here's what I didn't share this actually. Yeah, I think what made it easier for me was going to grad school right after my deconversion. And I made a whole new set of friends, a whole new community. So I think that's what probably really helped my transition.
Okay.
Out. And it was almost like the putting off made it a lot more easy to do. And I, just had, I think. And then I started a new career, so really getting invested into that. So
would somebody be anywhere near the universe of being right if they said, "Oh, so you just distracted yourself from this all important? These are the ultimate questions. Like, did you just stop thinking about origin, destiny, and meaning? Like, what did you do with the questions, even if you weren't trying to alert other people that they were wrong about the answers?"
So I just did it personally. I mean, I had one friend that I would kind of confide in as well, but a lot of it was just internalized, and I was fine with that. I was
okay.
That worked for me, and I'm already like that. I internalize everything, but I now it would be wrong to say that I never really pulled on any, that I had one or two or a few conversations with old friends. And I had one friend of mine who I got into a debate with, a couple times. He used to go to the Presbyterian church in New York that I went to. So, I had kind of inner debates like that here and there with some people, but but never in a sense to go out of my way to really have these long conversations with
Gotcha.
ex-friends, things like, or I mean ex-Christian or Christian friends from
Right, from your past. Jay,
Yeah.
what did you, if you got to the point where you said people don't really care about these issues, they're in the faith for other reasons, and you stopped pulling on people's coattails to have these discussions. Once you got to that point, what did you personally do with the ultimate questions of origin, destiny, and meaning? Did you stop caring? Did you distract yourself from having to think about them, or did they just dissipate? Did they not matter to you anymore?
Um, well, I don't, I, I don't know. It's just like there's more to life than ultimate questions.
Okay.
Like, oh, I mean, I guess I'm a part of that faithless and perverse generation that just doesn't care. Like, I just don't care. Like, yeah. I mean, the whole idea that there are these things that you have to care about. I'm like, no, I just don't care. Like, that's an appropriate response to a lot of things in life outside of those things that you actually care about. It's appropriate to say out loud, I don't care. It's like, oh, well, Jay Whit, what do you think about the origin of the universe? I don't know, and I don't care. like I mean, so you can add, you can make. It's like a house that you can make additions to, like if necessary. But the I don't care fills in, and it's not to say that I'm not curious.
That was going to be my next
It's
question.
like
Okay.
there might be a day that. Would you say?
That was going to be my next question, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean there are days, and the thing is, I think it's a matter of preoccupation for Christians and for a lot of believers in different religions to be preoccupied with these issues. And for me, it might be just like, think of it as like going on a vacation. Like that's not my normal work. Occasionally I might go over there and visit this and check it out. But, I get back to the business of living, like, and not having my time predominated by these issues. So, yeah, that's what it is
Gotcha.
for me. So it's not that I'm not curious. I mean, I'm on this podcast. Anybody who knows me knows I've gone into conversations about these things, but they don't dominate. They don't hold that kind of real estate in my mind that they used to. There was a time when it had all of the real estate in my mind. It was like, it lived in my head rent free. It lived in my head rent free. But now it's like, okay, occasionally it gets to rent for a very brief time, So that's it. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that
It kind of makes you see it a different way, I guess.
yeah.
Or-
I'm still thinking about, the way I approach things. Um, I think maybe there is a little bit of idealism in me. I don't think that my book or my Facebook page or my podcast, I don't think it's going to change the world, at least not instantly and probably not even in my lifetime. But I think there's something to being able to slowly, gradually begin to turn the tide so that conversations like these are more common. And the reason why Jay Witt, he said this maybe once before, but I don't think he's ever said it as clearly on the podcast as he said it to me in private. One of the reasons why, and if I speak for you incorrectly, correct me, but one of the reasons why Jay Witt is in Jehovah's Witness protection, why he's not revealing his identity, is because this brother sincerely has got the impression, and not just the impression, but had the experience of when Christians find out that someone is an atheist, they believe the worst about that person. They believe that that person must be immoral. This person must be untrustworthy. This person must be wicked. And so rather than contend with people's perception of atheists, he'd rather just not let on that that's where he is. He's not in church services. He's not, going around with the Bible. But he'd rather it just not be known that he's not a believer in any God because of the way that Christians might therefore treat him. And so I think if a podcast like this can help change that so that it does begin to normalize people being okay with people who believe differently about them. Not just because, hey, everyone's going to have a different take, but because even the thing that some people are believing, the Bible-believing Christian, might need to come down a peg, if not be taken down a peg, so that you're not as... The confidence that you have to wield your inerrant, divinely inspired Bible over someone else's head and look down upon them or call them a fool because they believe there is no God. You might have to reckon with how foolish it might be to still be believing what you believe. And it doesn't make you necessarily a fool, but maybe we're all a little bit foolish. Maybe we all can have a little bit more humility in how we deal with one another. So I say that to say, I don't think I'll change the world, but maybe I'll play my part in helping us have these discussions that get us a little further down this road that we're all on. So that's where I'm at with it.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
So great discussion. We said a lot. I'm going to have to chop this up in a few different ways. But comments, we definitely appreciate comments, questions about anything you heard. Smoke them if you got them. You might find us in the comments chatting with you. No promises, but we do read the comments and we do try to interact where we feel like it deserves a response. So that being said, we're going to wrap it up there. And we'll be back on this next time. So much love, y'all. Peace.